Alright, so this chapter opens up with us seeing the moments leading up to the first round of Gojo versus Sukuna, and it's a pretty incredible first round. But we're seeing Gojo and Ichiji in this building in Shibuya, and I'm pretty sure this is where Jogo versus Sukuna took place, because we're seeing that big rock in the ground here, and I'm pretty sure that's the result of Jogo using his maximum technique on Sukuna. This could be further foreshadowing, maybe, you know, because Sukuna did win that fight. But anyway, Ichiji asked Gojo like how it felt inside the prison realm, because, you know, we the audience, and I guess all the characters as well, weren't really sure of what time was going to be like in there. And Gojo says it's similar to how it feels when work gets really busy, the contradictory feeling when a week passes by in the blink of an eye, and you wouldn't ever want to do it again. And this is like totally Gege writing here, the way that he describes it in a very like ambiguous but yet still straightforward way. And yeah, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, I guess you're really not supposed to fully get it. You know, he's not giving you an exact unit of measurement here. Then Gojo asks Ichiji what happened to all the people in B5. And since this was the epicenter of where Kenjaku released all of those cursed spirits from Geto's cursed spirit manipulation, he says that the non-sorcerers all over Tokyo were less likely to survive the closer they were to Shibuya, but all of the people in B5, which is where Gojo was originally trapped inside the prison realm when he was taking on the big natural disaster curses. Since the remnants of Gojo's cursed energy was there, none of the cursed spirits came near there, which is interesting, but totally makes sense. And then he asks if they had suffered from any side effects from Unlimited Void, because Gojo activated his domain expansion for 0.2 seconds in order to try to thwart the plan that the big natural curses were trying to implement against Gojo at that time. And since there were so many innocent civilians around there, they had to, of course, be a part of the domain as well. That's why he only did it for 0.2 seconds, and it turns out that they're pretty much fine. Ichiji says that they have all been fully rehabilitated and returned to their normal lives. And Gojo's like, oh, that's great. And then they start walking up to the roof of the building, and we see Uruhime and Gakuganji up there. This is going to be the beginning of one of the best sequences in the series, in my opinion. Maybe one of the best sequences in all of battle manga, or at least the modern ones of like the last 10 years. But we quickly cut over to Sukuna, who is observing Gojo from a distance, or at least he could see his cursed energy, because there was never any timetable put in place. They only set the date of this fight, so it could have happened at any time, which is like fine for both sides, because Sukuna is already aware that something is going down. But we'll find out later why he's none the wiser to the exact plan, which is just brilliant. But then we also have a flashback of Gojo talking to Gakuganji, and Gakuganji straight up tells Gojo, like, yeah, I was the one who killed Yaga. We know, of course, because it goes back to after the Shibuya incident, when the higher-ups were pretty much instructed to classify Gojo and Masamichi as like public enemies number 1 and number 2. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Private Internet Access. Private Internet Access is a virtual private network, or a VPN for short, which hides your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel. And believe it or not, Private Internet Access also provides a tool that can help anime fans. And I'll get more into that later, but Private Internet Access is also a tool that helps you with your everyday life. Because whenever you connect to the internet on a public Wi-Fi network, your data is at risk of being stolen. That's why Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection through their world-class server infrastructure, which makes your information shielded and bulletproof. I've been traveling a lot this year, guys, going from airport to airplanes, and I always use Private Internet Access for when I'm on public Wi-Fi in those instances. You can also now use one Private Internet Access subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices at the same time. But that's not all, because Private Internet Access also allows you to access region-restricted content from all over the world. Guys, we all love anime on this channel, and streaming services are notorious for region blocking certain anime. But you don't have to worry about that anymore, because Private Internet Access helps you overcome these restrictions by giving you the option to change your IP address to one of their 84 countries to choose from, as well as all 50 US states, allowing you to gain access to websites and services that are only available in those locations. So now we can finally catch new episodes of the Big 3 Shonen series on Netflix, something that we were never able to do before. Guys, watching anime on streaming services without Private Internet Access is like paying for a season pass in a game, but only getting a fraction of the DLCs. So guys, you can get Private Internet Access by clicking my link in the description. And by doing that, you're also going to get an 83% discount on private internet access. That's just $2.03 a month. And you'll also get 4 extra months completely free. Thanks, guys. Masamichi more so because of like the whole cursed corpse stuff, but Gojo's cool with it because mainly he's placing the blame on himself for being sealed up in the first place, because if he wasn't, then all of this would have been prevented, and that's understandable of Gojo. He has been the pillar of Jujutsu Society since, I don't know, high school, maybe even longer than that, but he's always had this burden and responsibility on him as being the strongest and trying to keep everything in balance. But he also doesn't blame Gakuganji because he says he's the ultimate example of a man just following orders, which he was. And he says that, you know, I can trust you to some extent because of that. So I really like this turn of events from Gojo and Gakuganji, to be honest. We talked about this in the previous chapter because we saw Gojo and Gakuganji with Urahime walking down the steps, like leading to where they are now. And we were like, man, there's got to be some explanation for this. And we assumed that maybe Gojo was just going to be cool with it because he was simply following orders. And Gakuganji isn't a terrible person. He's not like a full-blown heel by any means. More of a tweener character, maybe left of face, if that makes sense, or left of center. But Gakuganji also reveals that Yaga did tell him that there is a process to replicate what had happened with Panda, you know, making a perfect cursed corpse essentially. But he didn't tell the higher ups, and he kind of kept it to himself, and Gojo respects it. He's like, you know, you've changed, haven't you, Gramps? And that the secret behind Panda would be ranked as special grade information. And that's super interesting because I think that could also be a little foreshadowing maybe to Panda's ultimate glow up, which he is definitely going to have. Like, I don't think Panda's just going to stay in his small child form for the rest of the series. That would be a discredit to his character, especially since he was absolutely destroyed, like embarrassingly, by Kashimo. Even after having a whole chapter dedicated to this fantasy pseudo flashback that he had. So this could mean that, I don't know, maybe Panda's glow up will have him be special grade in power. Possibly. I mean, of course, it literally means that the information is special grade in itself, but like I said, it could be also tying to Panda as well. But then Gojo says that, referring to Gakuganji, maybe if you were at the head of HQ, things would be a bit better. And we see the higher-ups and they're all dead. And when we first saw the spoilers for this, we thought, wait, does this mean that Gojo killed all of them? Because he did say that, you know, maybe he should just kill all the higher-ups before, but I think that was just an idle threat by Gojo. I don't think he killed all of them here. I mean, it is a possibility, but I more so think this is Kenjaku. Because it goes back to chapter 191 when Kenjaku was talking to Noritoshi, and Noritoshi was like, have you already removed the party responsible for recommended Suguru Geto's execution? And then Kenjaku was like, as well as the one who named Akotsu and Yuji's executioner. So that, I guess, is tying up here, and it's like, yeah, Kenjaku killed all of them. I don't think this is Gojo, because Gojo would kind of be tarnished in the eyes of most of the fans at this point. I mean, not me, and I'm sure a lot of the people watching this, but, you know, we have to keep Gojo a strict babyface at this point. Like, he can't just murder people like this, especially in cold blood. It'd be a different story if they attacked him first, which they never would because they're not that stupid. But also him saying it would be better if Gakuganji was in charge, and I think this is more so what's going into the end game. Like, after everything wraps up, there still has to be kind of like a jujitsu higher up kind of order, and I think this means that Gakuganji will take over, and he'll be somewhat of a just leader in this, like not biased and corrupted the way that they were before. So then we get to the big awesome sequence that I was talking about, and Gojo and Ichiji are heading to the roof, and Gojo tells Ichiji that he trusts him the most, because Ichiji doesn't hold himself in high regard. He just knows that he's like an auxiliary manager and that all he can really do is like the curtains and the barriers. And it's like, yeah, but I trust you the most. And that's totally understandable because we, the audience, trust Ichiji too. That he's never given us a reason to not trust him. So Ichiji just goes full like effort here because he knows that Gojo has put trust into him. And Gojo is the strongest, and this is like the peak of the series. Like, this is where everything matters the most. So he has to make this count. Then we see Urahime getting prepared as well, and it's finally revealed what her curse technique is, and it's called the solo prohibition zone. So it's essentially allows her to buff a sorcerer's cursed energy, or it says their reserve and output temporarily enhanced as long as they remain in range. And this is an incredible curse technique. I'm not sure why Gege waited so long to reveal this, because this really would have helped out in the story at multiple points before this, but I guess better late than never. Then it's also said that the mastery of Jujutsu can be said to be mastery of subtraction. The skill of a sorcerer can be judged based on their ability to emit prerequisites like hand signs or incantations in order to fully activate their technique. And we've seen this mostly from Sukuna, to be honest, because, you know, Sukuna is the GOAT of Jujutsu, as they also point out in this chapter later on, the strongest sorcerer in history versus the strongest sorcerer today. But it doesn't mean that you have to do that. It's more so just, you know, showing your mastery. But it's more so laid out here that all of the sorcerers that we see setting up this, you know, Ichiji, Gojo, Hime, and Gakuganji are all doing the hand signs and the prerequisites. They're not missing out on anything, because they want this attack to be as absolutely unbelievably powerful as possible. Now, as for what Gakuganji is doing here, I have no idea. I'm not even sure if his curse technique has been fully explained yet. I mean, we've seen him use it maybe twice in the series, not so much against Masamichi, but back in the Tokyo Goodwill arc, we saw him use it. And I guess he can like amplify melodies through his guitar with his cursed energy or something, but I guess maybe this could be used in a supportive manner as well. I mean, he doesn't have an electric guitar like he did before. He kind of just has like a analog shamisen here. But it says that by using the ritual to channel Urahime's curse technique, she was able to achieve 120% of its normal effect. So yeah, doing the chants and all that stuff does make a difference. I mean, we even see Gojo doing it. I'm pretty sure he hasn't done this before. Like, that's how serious he is. Like, he says 9 points, polarized light, crow, and shmoyo chant, the gap between within and without. And we've seen characters say stuff like this before, and it doesn't really mean anything, to be honest. It's kind of just like cool wordplay or like decoration words, to be honest. But in the world of Jujutsu, of course, it does amplify things, because it allows Gojo, along with the help of everyone else, to have a hollow technique purple with 200% output. This is by far the strongest thing we've ever seen in the series. And Gojo was able to fire this off against Sukuna in like a moment. Sukuna wasn't able to see this coming because of Ichiji's barrier, because he misread it because it was being contained. I mean, he was aware of Gojo's presence, as we pointed out earlier. He can see it emanating from like over a mile away, but he wasn't able to sense the immense amount of cursed energy that was the output of that attack until it was like right in front of him. So it was essentially being shot with like a sniper bullet, but this sniper bullet is at 200% output, hollow technique purple. And all that Sukuna can really do is just put up his hands immediately to try and stop the attack. And yeah, this thing is destroying buildings and whatnot too. And also, I thought that this would have just nuked the entire city, but I guess it's more so condensed and compressed so that it's just hitting Sukuna and not destroying anything else, because I'm sure if Gojo really wanted to, he could. And surprisingly, Sukuna just takes this on the chin somehow. I mean, he is Sukuna after all, and he is at 19 fingers, or maybe 19 and a half fingers worth of strength, because while he doesn't have the last finger, it was said that Gojo likely has it for a contingency or just to stop Yuji from being executed. But he did eat like that mummified corpse of himself, at least ahead of it. So I guess that amplified him to like 0.5 or whatever, or point whatever. You can make up whatever kind of variable you want, but it only takes off Sukuna's right hand. And I'm not sure if he can even reverse curse technique back from this, because it was like hollow purple that destroyed it. I mean, it probably, but also that would mean that Gojo like permanently maimed Megumi as well, because, you know, this isn't Sukuna's main body. But still, the fact that this was the strongest attack that they could possibly produce at this point, I mean, amongst the four of them, I'm sure if the rest of the Jujutsu High joined in, they could produce an attack stronger. But, you know, with the group that they had here, they essentially created like a Jujutsu nuke, and all it could do was just take off Sukuna's right hand. But I'm sure they knew that it wouldn't completely take him out, but, you know, maybe they just thought best chance scenario it would. And the chapter ends with Sukuna like being confronted by Gojo, or at least it appears that he is. Like, they're somewhat in front of each other here, and Gojo's like, it seems like you've got the wrong idea, so let me just set things straight. great. You're the challenger here, which is like, we're getting the old Gojo back. The last, 2 chapters, he was very serious and uncharacteristic of Gojo. Like, he seemed worried going into this fight, rightfully so. But now he's got his confidence back, or at least somewhat of it. And I'm sure a lot of people were like wondering, like, who's the favorite here, or who's the challenger? And Gojo's making clear that, like, Sukuna is challenging him. But to be honest, it is Gojo challenging Sukuna. But that's where the chapter ends, and I really hope that we do get to see the continuation of this fight in the next chapter. But if we don't, and it just focuses more on flashbacks and stuff that had happened in the previous chapter that left off on cliffhangers or just cutaways, that would be fine too, because that is much needed. We have all the time to have Gojo versus Sukuna play out, and I do think Gege will deliver on this, because remember, all of the Culling game fights that we saw before this lasted multiple chapters, even the more so inconsequential ones. So if this is cut short, it would really be devastating to the series and the momentum that it currently has, which is riding at an all-time high, at least by manga standards. Now, also, what we talked about before with Jogo's maximum technique, that he used against Sukuna back in the Shibuya arc, this could also not just be foreshadowing that Gojo is maybe going to lose, but maybe that we're going to see Gojo's maximum technique. And you're thinking like, wait, isn't Hollow Technique Purple his maximum technique? And it could be, but I don't think it is, because he never says maximum technique. He says maximum cursed energy output when he's doing it before, but never like maximum technique. And that is always pointed out before a sorcerer does it. So I think this would be one last cool way for Gege to show the peak of Gojo's power, which you definitely haven't seen yet. And it would be whatever limitless maximum technique is. We also still have to see the maximum technique of what the 10 Shadows is. And then that could go back to what we've talked about many times with the foreshadowing that Gojo, in the past talked to Megumi about. It was like 400 years ago when the leaders of the Gojo clan and the Zenin clan had fought against each other, and they killed each other, and they both had the same set of powers that they have now. So maybe it comes down to maximum technique versus maximum technique. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. Let me know what you guys think about this chapter in the comments, and if you liked the video, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.